Hi, everyone. And we would like to welcome everyone who is listening to our special EndNote, which is the Friday EndNote for the Blockchain Bootcamp. A welcome to everyone who's here. I am extremely excited and honored to have the Premier of Bermuda, the Honorable David Burt here. And welcome. How are you doing today?
Lovely, lovely, lovely. How are you?
I'm doing great. We've had a very exciting week. And to kick off the end, we're wrapping up 5 days of extraordinary conversation at the Maryland Blockchain Association Summer Conference. But we're looking ahead. We're also looking at what we learned here, but we're looking at how we're reflecting on where we're going. And I know Bermuda has always been a leader in this space. And I would like to ask you, where do you think that we should be heading based upon the lessons that we've learned from this past week?
Well, thank you again, and certainly thank you to the Maryland Blockchain Association and everyone who contributed their time and expertise this week. And I think that the depth of dialogue has been exceptional because I think all of us recognize and understand that we're no longer debating whether or not digital assets belong in regulated finance. We're now moving on from that, and the work that we are engaged in right now is how do we regulate them well, how do we supervise it well, and how do we make sure that the same principles that apply to regulation in traditional financial markets can also apply for digital asset markets, and that is to make sure we protect consumers while also allowing innovation to happen. And then I would say that, for those of you who are new to the Bermuda story, we're 21 square miles in the 21 square mile island in the middle Atlantic. And 8 years of this journey, Bermuda has been on since the introduction of the Digital Asset Business Act way back in 2018. So from that perspective, we recognize ourselves as leaders in the digital asset space globally. There's over 50 digital asset businesses that are registered here, more digital asset insurers that are registered here as well. We have big names, household names. We also have small boutique firms who are innovating and bringing new products to market that some people have not even had the full concept of. And so what I'll say is that Bermuda brings this conversation, not scale, it's our experience, is our supervisory experience, because we have a significant I would say expertise, because there's nothing inside the digital asset ecosystem that we have not seen in our 8 years of regulating this industry.
So with what you've shared, for sure, Bermuda has developed a reputation for moving fast, faster than most jurisdictions. But when it comes to financial innovation, whether it was DABA in 2018 or with the way that the BMA's embedded DeFi supervision pilot, or the AI agent legal entity framework, which is just phenomenal, and now digital asset infrastructure. What enables Bermuda to move with that kind of speed while still maintaining regulatory credibility? Because that is really critical in our community.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the thing is that, and it's a great question, because a lot of times there's this question about the balance between innovation and supervisory rigor, and I think that the Bermuda Monetary Authority has managed to thread that needle and thread it well. But I think it's important to note that this is not our first time at this. We basically took what we had from our insurance setup, because Bermuda is one of the major places on the planet for insurance, and we basically transferred that to the digital asset regulation. And the way that we call it is the Bermuda Triangle, just a cute play on words, but it's the Bermuda Triangle approach to innovation. And it connects the three actors that are crucial in this, the government, the BMA, and also industry. And what happens between the government, BMA, and industry is that the government, of course, government is there to legislate, but the real interaction is between industry and the regulator. Industry will say, these are the types of things which we think are coming, these are the types of things which we want to do. And the BMA will look at it and will say, well, whether or not this is something that they can actually regulate. If it's something that's a little bit more tricky, such as prediction markets and other things, they'll come to the Ministry of Finance to ask whether or not this is something that the government has political appetite for. But typically, there are things that are already understood for a political appetite. The BMA will then go through the process of going through a consultation paper, work with industry to make sure that we put in place rules that make sense. And then we'll go ahead and they'll pass the government, and then we'll pass into legislation. Because Bermuda is so small, we can move very quickly. In the United States, it's taken many, many years to get any legislative progress up at the federal level. for us, we formed in 2017 blockchain task force. By 2018 in May, we already had two pieces of digital asset legislation on the books, and that is just a symbol of how we were able to move very quickly. The reality is that this works because we continue to have that feedback loop. So the Bermuda Triangle approach does not end when the bills are put into place. It is continually upgrading, where there's people who are in industry saying, this is something more that we need. Can we do that? And it allows us to go ahead and continue to upgrade our legislation. So from that, I think is important. We know that we have multiple levels of regulatory, I guess I'd say, supervision at the BMA, where you can have a test license, where you can have a modified license, which is kind of a sandbox license, and a full license. And we also have our innovation hub as well, where people can go ahead and take a look and find out things that may work, that may not work, and work with the regulator, because we recognize and understand that some companies may not even have a full picture of what they're trying to do. And working with the Bermuda Monetary Authority certainly gets them into better view and focus. And sometimes the regulator will ask tough and difficult questions that they may not have considered themselves.
I think everything that you shared, we've seen over this past week, because of the fact that when you have entrepreneurs who are exploring different areas, it's all about discovery and then application and then implementation. You've described the BMA's embedded supervision pilot as generally novel. For the policymakers in this room, what is embedded supervision? They might not know that. And why is it different from how regulators operate elsewhere?
Well, embedded supervision is a fancy term, and regulators can come up with wonderful fancy terms. But basically, it is the how would I say? I'll be provocative and say it is also regulating DeFi, or it's our attempt to do so. And so the embedded supervision pilot is exploring how regulation supervision can evolve as in these type of decentralized networks. And so at its core, it's basically helping to answer the question that are facing regulators when looking at DeFi. What does regulatory oversight look like in a space where you do have decentralized financial markets? And so the Bermuda Monetary Authority's blockchain and forensics data analytics team piloted this with industry, with both stablecoin reserves and AML ATF sanctions compliance could be embedded within smart contracts at the protocol level. And this enabled, I guess I would say, part of this was preventing transaction if underlying reserves were there below a certain threshold, and similarly preventing transactions where such transactions would not meet specified AML and ATF sanctions requirements, affecting proof of reserves and AML sanctions compliance in real time. And I guess that's where we're talking about the future. And I'm so proud of the Bermuda Monetary Authority, because we continue to push the envelope on these particular things for sure. So I would say that rather than just applying today's supervisory tools to tomorrow's markets, the pilot is examining, what are they, how are we going to have these entirely new approaches in programmable financial systems? And without question, we believe that our regulator has the answer. And this is just another example of us trying to push the envelope to make sure that we're not paying attention to what is issues today, but what is going forward, which will be the issues of the future.
So I'm aware that some of those that participated in the supervision pilot included Blueprint, Hacken, Chainlink, and the Apex group. And in fact, Hacken and Chainlink have participated this entire week within the Bootcamp. So it's very interesting to see where different projects kind of start from, or where they are also working. So that's really exciting as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So, one of the areas that is really hot topic, is artificial intelligence. And that is really definitely taking the world by storm over the last year and even way before. And Bermuda is always thinking ahead and is thinking about this technology. But how is it thinking about the technology, especially as it relates to your, digital finance ambitions and things like that?
Well, I would say that AI is the big topic of conversation, kind of like how blockchain was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And the reality is that it's changed the way that business is being conducted, and we know that there's opportunities and there's risks. But from a regulator's perspective, we need to understand the regulatory implications of that. And from a government perspective, we need to be live and wise to how this can have impacts on our economy going forward. And so Bermuda's used to trying to push the boundaries of regulatory innovation in this. And then so we're looking and exploring around adding clarity to our existing regulatory frameworks to classify AI agents as legal entities. In addition to potential frameworks to encourage your use of Bermuda. Now, this is early stage. There's nothing that has been set, but these are the types of things that you have to explore. If you are looking and trying to make sure you stay ahead as a regulator, the reality is that there may be artificial intelligence agents that are going to be doing transactions in the future. And, how exactly are those things measured, monitored, and how are they regulated as well? So I think it's important, whether it's digital assets, whether it's asset management, whether it's a banking sector, or even in our traditional insurance industry, I think it's important that we recognize and understand how those things are. If an agent is there, how is that agent insured? If they make a mistake, with a legal responsibility. So it's all of those type of things that can handle. We know that agentic finance is going to be coming pretty soon, and we want to make sure that we have an understanding. So the Bermuda Monetary Authority has open applications into their sandbox for AI companies and projects to come experiment on our shores and collaborate in collaboration with our regulator. So we can, see and learn from you. It's also important that we recognize that regulators also learn from entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs who, as you were saying earlier, Jackie, may have some views and thoughts, but need to, continue to discover and get that out. It's a collaborative process. And so when we're talking about this from the AI agent perspective, it's also something that we're welcome partners to go ahead and be a part of our innovation hub if you think you have something that is a good idea.
I'm very excited about this innovation sandbox for AI, and definitely, we'll be sharing that out, not just here at the Bootcamp, but at our global summits and other ways that we, do education, because I think sandboxes are definitely the way that people can explore the products and then make sure that they are providing a service that has consumer protection as well. So why did you set out to position Bermuda as a leader in digital finance? And how has this taken shape on the island? Because I know you've always been a visionary.
Well, you're far too kind, Jackie. But this is a story about almost accidents. This is not a story of me because I've been in office for just under 9 years, and it's not like I was orange pilled before I came to office. It's not like I was running around and like, oh my gosh, Bitcoin. That was not me.
Yeah.
That's not the thing. Though my party it's talked about fintech as an economic diversification strategy. There wasn't anything that we were completely wedded to at the beginning of our term. It just so happened that a few months into our term, there were some people who I knew, and they said that there's an opportunity for regulation of digital assets where Bermuda can certainly lead given its history of financial services. And so we set up a task force that looked into this. And we're going to travel to the World Economic Forum, met some persons there. There's a lovely story that's chronicled in Bloomberg where one of my ministers invited people to come to Bermuda to design the future. And we got to the airport, we had nothing planned, and they all started showing up. So then we had to, figure out how we were going to to deal with that. But the reality is that we really started this as a defensive play. And it was a defensive play because back in 2017, like AI is everything now. Back then, it was blockchain will kill everything. There'll be no insurance companies, there'll be no accounting firms, there'll be no law firms. Everything will be blockchain, everything will be blockchain. And so our view was if our insurance companies, which was our major business, could not innovate here in Bermuda, they would go somewhere else. And that would be an impact on our business in the long term. And so from that aspect, that is the reason how we fell into this Digital Asset Business Act. What has happened is, as a result of the Bermuda Triangle, that I would say the legislation and the framework just becomes more and more expansive. It takes into account derivatives. It takes into account staking and lending. It takes into account the new things which you're seeing inside of digital finance. And so from that perspective, we continue to go ahead and build. But it really did start as a defensive play. That's what it was. And so from that aspect, it's quite funny because I always have to remind people that I didn't like set out to say, oh, we're going to do a whole bunch of things in digital assets. That's not where it started from.
Yeah. So it is amazing how turn of events kind of take us down different paths for sure, things that you don't always anticipate. So we've talked about AI, but another area that's really gaining traction is stablecoins. And, they are definitely front and center this week, particularly on the institutional side. Last month, you announced that Bermuda has the ambition for its own national digital dollar.
Mhm.
What led you down this path, and where are you right now?
I just think, well, from our perspective, the one thing I just want to make sure is clear is that this is not a central bank digital currency, because our view is that we should not. And Bermuda has a currency board arrangement currently now, so we don't technically have a central bank. We do have a currency board still, and I like to tell people that the Bermuda dollar is the original stablecoin because it is one-to-one match with the U.S. dollar. But the reality is we're a dual currency economy with both U.S. dollars and Bermuda dollars circulating free in the economy. But one of the things that is a challenge of being such a small island is that you don't have, like the companies like Stripe and Venmo and Cash App and even PayPal that are, working here in Bermuda because we're such a small market. They're focusing on places that have millions of customers that can actually return value to their shoulders in small countries like us. So the question is, what do we do? How do we continue to innovate? And the reality is that stablecoins can help on that innovation, payment stablecoins and others. And so the view is that we're working with our partners, our regulated partners in Bermuda already, to launch a digital Bermuda dollar, which is just a simple updating of our financial system into the digital era, which will function just the same as our currencies do now. It's just a digital representation of that currency, and that will provide a mechanism for near zero fee payments, which is always something that is important, while also making sure that we just make things more efficient. So from that perspective, we're looking forward to seeing how that plays out. There's work that needs to be done, and we're working with our partners who do have licenses to issue stablecoins, because that's one of the license categories that you've been able to do from the very beginning in Bermuda. And so we want to see how that continues to build up.
You're as I'm listening to this, because of the fact that I know the Bermuda dollar is also going to be an instrument for social pride as well. I keep thinking about the book that I've written for Bermuda, the Bitcoin Cinderella and the Pink Sands Treasure of Bermuda. And I keep thinking, I need a second version now. I need to add all this new information in there that wasn't there. So that way we need to be able to give it out to everyone to understand, how do they get access to this dollar now?
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but I have a really good team. We have a really good team at BMA. We have a really good digital finance advisor, and we just continue to press on at it. But as I said, once the ecosystem exists in Bermuda and you have industry giving your feedback to the regulator, that's just a recipe for growth. And we've seen that in other areas of financial services, and hopefully it'll happen with this.
Yeah, no, for sure. So none of this infrastructure works without equipping people with the digital literacy, and that's something that you and I, are both very passionate about, and the skills to use them. You've spoken about adapting education and workforce development, which is also what the Blockchain Bootcamp and Workforce Expo has been about, for the on-chain era and streamlining global talent access. What is the challenge, and what is Bermuda doing? Where do you see that we should make improvements, or where do we go?
Well, I think that education is important. And I think what's also important is to know that you can't force things. You have to make sure you provide the education. So, for instance, from an education perspective, we provided free fintech training online to anyone in the country who wanted to get access to it, completely paid for. All the rest. We've done numerous workshops. We do things for the BEDC, which is our basically the equivalent in the U.S. of Small Business Administration, to go ahead and sign up vendors, to go ahead and accept digital payments. We have things like the Digital Finance Forum, where people do have the opportunity to, receive airdrops, spend money, so they are actually doing this in a real way, having an understanding how to receive tokenized assets inside of a wallet, whether it's a hosted wallet or or an app from one of our many digital asset companies, or whether it's a self-custodial wallet as well. All those things are stuff in which we educate on, and we want to just make sure people can use it more and more. But the one lesson is that you can't rush education. And the reality is that when we're talking about digital assets, the convenience factor is getting a lot better, but it's still not there. And of course, you have the problem. Someone's like, I like my credit card just fine. It doesn't do anything to me. That is okay. And so from that perspective, I think we still have a ways to go, but I'll give you a perfect example. One of the persons who, at the very beginning, was into our fintech training, would do these events and programs that we have this summer. She's actually a teacher at the Barclay Institute. And she went to one of our local high schools and started a fintech course in one of our international business signature programs. And so what that basically says is that, the community is coming on board as well. And so that is what is particularly important, I think, overall. So you can't rush it, but you have to make sure that you make it available.
I totally agree with you. Premier, final question. Bermuda has put forward a clear vision for digital finance, from regulatory leadership to real world deployment. What's the one thing you would like every person in this room and those that might be listening to the recording afterwards to walk away with?
So I guess I'd say this. I'd say as the United States continues to advance towards regulatory clarity, I think it's important to know that Bermuda can serve as a trusted partner for American institutions that are looking to build compliance formal financial products internationally. We've been aligned with U.S. regulatory agencies from the start. We intend to deepen that particular alignment. And from our perspective, we believe that Bermuda should be part of every institution's digital finance strategy. If you do have, a medium to large company and maybe even a small company, and if you are looking at doing things, I guess, in the digital finance space, we should certainly be your option as well if you're looking globally. Because the reality is that the Bermuda Monetary Authority is the best digital asset regulator on the planet, bar none. That is not something that can be challenged. We've had the same team since the beginning. We've seen it all, and to a person, whoever gets on a call with Bermuda Monetary Authority, they come off and if they follow up with me or someone else, and they will say they are shocked with how knowledgeable, how good their questions are, how much they like to work with persons and bring them along. So from that perspective, I think that it is really a really good thing for us, I think, to say that if you're doing something in digital finance globally, you should come to Bermuda. And remember, there's lots of different ways to do it, whether or not that is just via the test license or even the Innovation Hub, all the way up to the full license, which is an unrestricted license. Bermuda is a place for digital assets. And if you are going to do anything globally, you really, really, really should be here in Bermuda.
So I cannot thank you enough for being the end note for a week of really incredible conversation, networking, and learning. I know that we have had a variety from high school students to college students to businesses to regulators, consumers, those that are new, those that are also embedded within our community. And the boot camp, again, is exactly what it is. It's a camp of knowledge. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you be our end note is because of the leadership that you've shown, and also because of our relationship with Bermuda. We started, Blockchain Legal Institute over a number of years ago. We came to Bermuda. We were at your, one of the financial events. And so it's just apropos that you would be here for our first in-kind, in-person event. And so we want to thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. And thank you again to the Maryland Blockchain Association. And I sincerely hope that you all have a wonderful, wonderful time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.